It's 4 o'clock, so call to order the February 25th, 2026 Hendersonville City Council second monthly meeting. You have the agenda in front of you. Are there any changes you would like to see in the agenda? Not? Motion to approve?
Madam Mayor, I approve the agenda as presented. I don't even know what I'm talking about.
Oh my gosh. Is there any discussion? Not. Those in those in favor of approving the agenda as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it, and motion carries, and we have our.
This is not starting well at all. Y'all were talking about, children need to, experience and things. So us as parents, we didn't put the motion on there, and now we're in trouble. So there we go. So that's right. All right. Mayor, Volk, members of City Council, my pleasure to invite David Hart up. David is a teacher at the Career Academy, good citizen, and I think he was part of a Safe Routes to School study, and so I'm going to turn it over to him.
Thank you. Mayor, council members, thank you for having me here today. I really appreciate your time. As Mr. Khan said, I'm a teacher over at Career Academy, and I'm also the HMS cross-country coach for the middle school. So I know the area pretty well, utilize the streets in that area. And so I'm also a member of the Safe Routes to School advisory board for this area. And with me today is Ada McGovern, who is our Safe Routes to School coordinator, and our director of school safety, Pete Barnett, to help me answer any questions you guys may have. So last school year, we conducted a walk audit of 9th Avenue. If you're unfamiliar with it, it is the road that connects Hendersonville Elementary School, Hendersonville Middle School, and Hendersonville High School. And as a coach with my athletes in that area and working previously at HMS, it gets used heavily. Students from the middle school walk to Crosswalk, walk to the Boys and Girls Club. Athletes walk from the middle school to the high school, and athletes from the high school walk to the middle school, as well as families walking their kids to the elementary school. It's very heavily used, and it was an area that I have a concern with, so we conducted a walk audit on that, and I have a report for y'all. So if you're unfamiliar with the walk audit, a group of community stakeholders walk a large area, stretch of the area of concern, and make observations. With me was some fellow teachers, a student, Joe Saunders, a member of the Blue Ridge Bike Club, and we just kind of take everything in, observe everything that's there. If you look on the second page, there's a map as well, the route details, and some of the observations we saw. Just some highlights, there were 65 different people, majority of them students from the middle school and the high school using the area, and a few different things of note there. On the third page, there's observations about some concerns, and at the bottom were recommendations. So the recommendations are just the things that we saw that were of most concern with students and families and kids using that area of the 9th Avenue. The first one, and probably the biggest one that we saw, was the placing a pedestrian crosswalk at the end of 9th Avenue crossing Oakland Street. Then there was if you've used Justice Street right next to the hospital, that's where that intersection, there's a stoplight there, and there's a sidewalk that everybody uses, but there's no push to walk there. So kids, have to navigate that and walk, and they're usually really good about that. Only a few times where I've seen people not looking, as sometimes kids do when they're walking in groups and packs, they don't pay attention to the traffic as much as they should. So having a push to walk crossing sign would be definitely increase safety. And then on the last one on there on the bottom is there is no pedestrian crosswalk connecting the middle school to the elementary school. A lot of families use that sidewalk that in between the practice field of the school and the elementary school to cross there. And there's nothing on the sign, or there's nothing on the road there to help with crossing. So I came here today just to present this information to you in hopes that we can increase signage and the safety for families and kids using the area right there on 9th Avenue, connecting all three of those schools. Do you have any questions? Or?
David, thanks for coming, because this plays right in. The next two, tonight and tomorrow night and Friday, is our retreat council, and one of the things we'll spend some time on Friday morning will be, public safety is the theme, the main theme Friday morning, and a variety of things. So one of the things we'll talk about is traffic, transportation, and being more proactive on some of this stuff. So I thought it was important that when you called me that we do it tonight to set the stage for other things the council will hear on Friday morning. So, and we have set up a new committee internally to address intersections, roads, safety in general for traffic. So, but the council will hear more about that on Friday. But so I thought this was a good setup. Thank you.
All right, thank you all very much.
I have a question really fast. Do you know if the school system has written, and Ada might be able to help too, for a letter of resolution of support for the Safe Routes to School program to continue that for 27 calendar year? Do you know if Henderson County Public Schools has done that letter yet? Sure. Do you recall if Henderson County Public Schools has sent a letter of support to the French Broad MPO for support of renewing the Safe Routes to School program?
I'm not aware of that
Okay.
letter, but I'm happy to investigate and get back to y'all.
Okay, that'd be great, because every little bit helps, and the program has been exceptionally beneficial, I think, as you see that too, and just being able to continue that throughout the city and other communities. And it is primarily a federally funded program, so if we can get more support from our partners. I know the city council has done one, I think, every year for the last few years, but if you haven't, it would be great if you could, because that will also continue to help funding for these programs too.
We'll look into that.
Thank you.
Welcome.
All right, thank you all very much for listening. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Building Hendersonville retreat.
Yes, Mayor Volk, members of City Council, as Deputy City Manager Brian Pauley is coming up. Just want to kick off. We are officially at this point kicking off your retreat. We'll present a good bit of information. I'll let Brian kind of go over the outline. But before we do, just want to thank Brian and Adam and Jenny and the rest of the budget team and Allison and everybody that's worked really hard on what you'll see the next 3 days. They have really put a lot of effort into it, and so just appreciate that. I will, again, appreciate your willingness to spend time with us the next 3 days. I think you'll get a dose of a lot of information, and we're trying to be as thorough as we can, and concise, and put it into small bites for you, so that as we go through the day, it should build on itself all the way through Friday afternoon. Thank you and congratulate and thank Brian and Adam and Jenny for what a great job they've done last few weeks putting this together for you.
All right, Mayor, members of the City Council, thank you for allowing us to use this workshop meeting to help prep for the retreat. We don't always get the opportunity to come in here and get kind of a prepper set out, and we felt like we would have time as well, so rather than extend the financial torture we're going to put you through Thursday night, we're going to start some of that tonight as well, so just to extend the fun. Tonight we're going to talk about the retreat that we're theming Building Hendersonville. I know there will be an exciting reveal of John Connett's costume on Friday morning, so that is what is keeping you here. I know that's the exciting piece of this retreat. We're going to talk a little bit about the general fund model and an overloaded version of that. I'm going to do an update on our projects that are going on in the city and a housing report update. Going to talk a little bit about the strategic plan, hopefully knock all of that out before 5 o'clock, and then let Adam go through a financial review of the general fund to kind of take some of that layer off for tomorrow night. The 3-day overview tonight, again, level setting. We just want to give you the information that you need to get prepared for the rest of the retreat, but we are adding some financials in there. Thursday night, again, is our traditional financial review. We'll review our estimates to actuals. I know Adam will hit on this, but I want to drive this home. We create budgets. Budgets are conservative. They're not a good, real vision of what the future may hold. They're very conservative. And we like to give you staff's estimate along with those budgets. That way you can have a real sense of where we may land. And what we do every year is we go back and we check how well we did when we estimated, right? And we say, hey, what was the actual audited numbers? How did they come into what we said we thought was going to happen? To hopefully give some confidence to you and the public that when we are talking about future projects and our capacity to afford them, there is reason to believe that there is some deficiency in those estimates, right? We'll talk about economic impacts on what's occurring economically, locally, and nationally, and how that's going to impact our budget and our retreat. And as always, we'll talk about compensation and benefits in great detail Thursday night. And then Friday is about building the plan, setting the vision for the future. This is, I'll highlight the mayor's last touch on the next 3-year strategic plan. So it is a very important retreat for us. We're excited to get to Friday because Friday is going to be big picture. What big rocks do you want to see us move forward over the next 3 years? And we are going to focus the morning, like John said, on public safety, and end the day with some reflections. Disclaimer, what we're going to cover tomorrow night and tonight is really going to be historical financials. So we're going to be looking at audited actuals over the past 5 years, explaining what's occurred over those 5 years and what you can pull from that. We'll be focusing on estimates to actuals. Again, what I talked about earlier about forecasting and confidence in those forecasts. High-level economic indicators. We'll be sharing results of a climate survey that we did with staff. We last did this in 2018. And if you recall, we've seen some of those quotes from staff over the years in retreat presentations around why they work here, what makes them excited to come to work for the city of Hendersonville, and what can make their job better. We refreshed that this year, and we have those details to share tomorrow night. It is also in your packets, so you can see the full detail of that in your packets under the strategic plan section. And obviously, we'll do comp and benefits. What we will not cover, we're not going to do a deep dive into our modeling systems, plug and play any projects. We won't review all the inputs that are in there. And we're not going to do like a deep dive on how sales tax works or any of that. That's all to come in April and May. And really the goal of this retreat is to create the blueprint for the next 3-year strategic plan. So diving in, the model keyword overload, we've took all the things that everyone could ever want and we put it into the model. And if you recall, we have a really nice, just simple grading system of all our financial indicators. It's a little more complex when you really dive into it, but on a high level, if we did everything everyone wants to do, and I'm probably missing some things, we'd be at a D and we'd go broke in 2034. D's get degrees, doesn't work in government. Again, one thing on the model though to pay attention to, on the top 3 years to the left here, 25 is actuals, 26 is an estimate, 27 is an estimate. We're doing pretty well right now. Our available fund balance is 26.7%, and the goal is 25%. We're expecting to grow that heading into reval. By the time we finish June 30th of this year, we're expecting to be closer to 30, and FY27 closer to 30. And really the key to this is providing council the opportunity to get to reval and use the revaluation as the opportunity to set the monetary policy you need to set to accomplish the goals that we're going to talk about through the rest of this retreat. And we'll prioritize those decisions as we go through the next couple days. No matter the outcome, we're going to have to prioritize. That's why I showed that slide. We can't do it all. It includes big projects like above the Mud Greenway, It includes $20 million for Whitmire and Patton Park. It doesn't have any FEMA money in there. It includes 29 new positions over 3 years. So it's got quite a lot in there. And it's stuff that we're going to have to work through as we lead into the reval.
And I think, Brian, the thing to answer is just, for remind the council and the public listening that, that model is a model, right? We use that to look multi-years out at the decisions we make. And I think, Brian and the team do a great job of just, looking at the model and, as we'll do in April and May, plug and play, right? Where we can see what the impact of spending and revenue decisions have on the financial sustainability of the city, which is one of your key priorities. And so just want to point out that it's just a model, but it really is very informative and helps us make sure that we're staying level and we are financially sustainable going forward.
Yeah, and it's really critical, I think, this year. We call this year the float year. It's the last year before reval. This year we try to float into that reval and keep our financial position strong. We are still awaiting FEMA decisions, right? And so once we receive FEMA decisions, that will be beneficial in understanding where our position is financially to do some of these projects. I'm going to jump over. We're going to talk about a couple different reports. We're going to talk about the projects report and the housing report. Both of these we've put some specific work into leading into this. The projects report is a 2-page report. It's essentially what we call a Gantt chart. It's a chart that tracks the progress of projects through the phases of the projects. And we've broken these down into 3 phases. You can see in the top right corner, evaluation pre-development is a lighter colored box, design is a red colored box, and construction is an orange colored box. And so, Allison, if you just scroll down a little bit on here, you can see we're in 2026 quarter 1, and you can see the project names on the left, and you can see where we are for each project going through the Gantt chart. Also, in the top, you can toggle different filters. You could filter by fund. If you just want to see housing projects, you could just turn on the housing projects. That's all you would see on the chart. And you can go by type to get even more granular into if it's transportation, if it's a water system project, if it's a wastewater project, and then stage. If you just want to see what's under construction, you can do that as well. We also have built in a Helene toggle, which I'll talk about in a second, but we thought it was important that if you just wanted to see Helene-related projects, you could in this. And so we're still refining this, but we have what we think is a large majority of all of our active projects in this one location. So if anyone from the public or council or staff has any question or concern about maybe what's going on outside, you can see 4th and Ash Street Improvements Project. Allison's highlighting it right now. Notes under construction in William Street area. You can see the budget, the funding source, the fund, etc. So we have all that information available. A couple other things to highlight. Allison, if you scroll down some more, you can see just the breadth of these projects. So she's got quarter 1 of 26 highlighted. All of these are in some form or fashion that staff has to address it in some way, right? So our engineering teams, our public works team, our water and sewer teams, police, fire, budget, finance, IT are all working on these projects, and it's quite a heavy load of projects. So I just want to highlight that out from a capacity standpoint. And then if you layer in Helene, so right now Helene is checked no. If Allison turns Helene on, you can see the plethora of work that we're trying to tackle in addition to the regular work that is on our schedule as well. So quite a few different projects we're working on there. And then additionally in this report, you can go to the second page, which provides just a breakdown of the budget. You can see the majority of the budget is in the water and sewer fund, $288 million on the left. General fund's about $122 million. You can see the total project count in the total budget in the top right. And then it clusters projects on the map, but if you zoom in on the map, you can start seeing kind of where these projects are. So for example, we can zoom in into the Wash Creek area. Our great stormwater director, Mike Huffman, just got a $2 million grant for Wash Creek sewer projects, and you can find that project in this map, see where it is, see the detail of what's going on with that project. So I really just wanted to highlight this for awareness. I wanted to highlight the amount of work that staff has on their plate, and just wanted to invite you to have the capacity to look at these things and the public to be able to know what's going on in the community around them. Any questions on our projects report? Additionally, we have been working, as you know, I think it's been, we build a lot of these and not all of them get used quite as much as the housing report. And we previously had this housing report, we built it in 2019. And at that time, it was more of a staff interest of where projects were in their phases of development. However, after our work on the strategic housing plan, we took some time to go back and kind of revamp this report to reflect what we're seeing in the strategic housing plan. And so we focused on six different areas to report on, one being supply, one being subsidy, key performance indicators or KPIs. These would be things like fair market rent, average median income, total homes sold per month. Our housing trust, standing that up, having a map available of what properties the city has in the housing trust, the total budget for different housing fund projects, and then a glossary of terms. So Allison's just showing you can click into those. It will take you to a different page. You can see the information, and the H button in the top left is the home button. So popping back home, Allison, if you hop into supply, we've really built out supply and subsidy at this point, and we're starting to work on the rest. And so the previous goal of the previous report was really focused on understanding what phase the projects were in, right? So if the public wanted to come in and say, hey, I want to see what's under review for the planning board, that's kind of how that report was developed. This report is much more tailored to our strategic housing goals for the needed units in the city of Hendersonville. And subsidy is the exact same way. So this took the strategic housing plan, reverse engineered it back to 2020 as our starting point, back to the previous Bowen study. And from 2020 to 2030, where we have data that we've been tracking, the city needed an additional 7,086 market rate units of housing. And so what's being done in this report is we're tracking that essentially on thermometers. On the bottom left, we have our completed units. We've completed 742 units as to date of those 7,000 needed units in the city. 1,802 are under construction, and close to 4,000 are entitled. So you can see from an entitlement perspective, we're over the halfway mark within 5 years. However, those units kind of coming through the pipeline and getting built has not kept up with the amount that have been entitled. Additionally, on this page, I've got some information just that you can highlight over little information buttons, and they can show you kind of what those numbers actually mean. So that construction one includes completed and under construction on the thermometer. In the top right, you have the units by stage. So you can see, again, units under construction, but it also includes units that are either denied or withdrawn. You can see there's been about 1,200 of those. And then that little pink sliver off to the right is pre-entitlement. So we have 162 units currently in the entitlement process. One thing I forgot to mention at the start is we do have filters like most of our reports at the top. So you can filter if you just want to see things that are complete. You could click a button and see all of that. If you just want to see what's active versus inactive, you can see that. And what we mean by active versus inactive is we have projects that come through. If you think about the Southgate apartment complex project down by Fresh Market, we have toggled that as an inactive project because we haven't seen movement based on a certain time period. And one thing to highlight, we do track that on the far right. So of all of the units, there's been 5,741 units that have come before the city, be it neighborhood compatibility, planning board, or city council. Of those units, only 3,300 remain active. So about 60% of the total units have remained active in the pipeline since January of 2019. Lastly, on this page, you have the map at the bottom. The houses are color-coded to match what is in the thermometers and the units by stage box chart. For example, you can see Wilmot over there in the green, Allison. So the red is the single family. You can see the multifamily there is under construction and nearing completion. So once we go in and update this next month, it would probably be in the complete category.
So denied and withdrawn are altogether regardless of the stage at which denial or withdrawal happened?
That's correct.
Right, okay,
We do track it in further detail, so
yeah.
if that was of interest, we could put that data in here. Of
I'd
when
be
it
interested in that.
didn't make it through, yeah. We're gonna flip over to the next page, but any other questions on this? And then next we have subsidy, and this is the last page we've built out, and this is related to, again, the housing plan, but it's related to the categories 1, 2, and 3 housing that's identified in the strategic housing plan. Essentially, that's everything under 80% AMI. And so the plan identified a need for 2,648 units within the city. We've completed 43 of those units. That's Hawkins Point over on Highway 64. You can see it in the purple on the map. And then there's been about 473 entitled. So a lot more work to do. I think we all know that on the subsidy side of the house. But with the strategic housing plan adopted and us starting to move that forward, that's something we're going to bring you this spring and summer to continue to work on affordable housing. That's all I have on the report. Any questions there?
So Brian, both of these are available for the council to use.
They're on our website. I believe Allison posted them yesterday.
Okay. And one is under, well, Allison's going to show
You
us.
can find all of them under budget.
Okay.
If you want to learn about parking, parking's there as well. All the things are there. Gantt chart, stop right, housing is in the middle.
Thank you.
Thanks, Allison.
I just want to say how helpful that is. So thank you for doing that. That's so nice to have that easy access to all the stuff that's going on.
Yeah, it's a team effort. Community development does a heavy lift every month of updating all the data on the back end. And lastly, I just want to highlight what will be coming to you with predominantly on Friday is our strategic plan update. Again, this is a 3-year plan update for the city of Hendersonville. We've done a really robust community engagement process through the fall and the winter, including council conversations, focus groups, city council one-on-one interviews, city manager interview. We did staff input at varying levels from mid-level supervisors all the way up to the executive team. And now we are here today in the spring bringing you all of that input and bringing you the structure of the plan that's in draft form to get your take on everything we've heard, right? And that's what we're going to be talking about on Friday. After that point in the middle, we'll move into drafting the plan, moving towards hopefully an adoption with the budget in June, and then starting tracking and implementing the plan in July of 26. So why update the strategic plan? One is best practices every 3 to 5 years is kind of the standard to update your strategic plans. We've been on a 3-year cycle, so we've been sticking with that cycle. Really, there's broad organizational elements of this. You know, we're not updating the vision and the mission of the council every 3 years, but we are focusing in on the goals, performance measures, and action items. This is a traditional layout of how strategic planning works. You know, the board responsibility is up at the top, staff's responsibility at the bottom to implement it. But really, this is not a rigid structure. I want to say that because we don't want you to be stuck at the high level. If you have specific things you want to see done in the next 3 years, we want to hear that over the next few days. Again, I've overviewed this. I don't think I'm going to hit on it too much. Just the right side is one of our council conversations. You can see housing, growth management, community character. We had some dot voting going on and some big ideas being posted by community members. That area got the most votes, and within your binders, you have an outline of the strategic plan input, and so it has the full detail of everything that's in there for you to prepare for Friday.
Yeah, and that's under the Friday tab.
I think it's strategic plan tab.
Oh, is it? Is there?
Yes.
Yes, sorry.
Friday's just presentations.
Sorry.
You're good. What we do have that I'd like to share with you today, we introduced this in December. We do have a draft framework, so we are restructuring the plan a little bit. You know, currently we have a mission, vision, focus areas, value statements, and then 10 focus areas, which is a lot, or not focus areas, but 10 goal areas, which is a lot of goal areas. So what we've done and what we're proposing to do is boil our goal areas into 5. So there's going to be, we're calling them 5 focus areas. Those are our programs. So that's public safety, parks, greenways, and natural amenities, strong infrastructure, business and economic development, and housing, growth management, and community character. So those are like where the action happens in the city. That's where our staff are out accomplishing the goals of the city council. And then what we're suggesting is reframing our focus areas into what we're calling enablers. And so this is how we're going to deliver those goals well. And so that's high-performing organizations, so that's focused on staff development, quality staff, service excellence, customer service, financial sustainability, right? We need to be aware of the capacity to tax and the rates that we're putting on our residents. Community partnerships, we got to have strong partnerships to advance the plan. High-functioning city council, staff giving you everything you need to do your job effectively, and an engaged and educated community. This really came out as one of the ones that we felt was very important and wasn't captured early on in the framing of this, but this is really about ensuring that we're out in the community and we're engaged with them in our decision-making processes. And then lastly, we're calling strategic lenses. This is how we think and how we decide. These are your value statements that are up on the wall over here. And those really should frame how we're pushing all of this forward. So that's what we're going to be proposing for the draft framework, and that is we'll be going through stations on Friday related to these. So as part of Friday, you'll have a blueprint for Hendersonville's future. This is similar to what we talked about with the one-on-one interviews, but we do want to provide the opportunity for you all to share that with one another in a group setting. So we'll have that for you Friday. And then really the bulk of the work will be going around to stations around the room and talking to staff about what you want to see in each focus area. So for public safety, what does winning look like for you? And that might be, you know, improved corridors for children to get to school. And what are those action items you want to see done in the next 1 to 2 years? So those are the things we'll be talking about on Friday. And then why is this important? And I really like this. I've been using this a lot. I got to see Jamie Valvano speak a few years back, and it really touched me because she was talking about an extraordinary life, right, and what makes your life extraordinary. And me being weird, I was like, this is about strategic planning. But this is a excerpt from that presentation talking about her dad. And at an early age, Jim Valvano, you know, he's a famous basketball coach, NC State, knew what he wanted to do. He would write things down on index cards. And so he carried around index cards in his pocket of his goals. And he, you know, wanted to play high school basketball, become an assistant coach, achieve a victory in Madison Square Garden, and finally cut down the nets at a national championship. And so he accomplished all those things. And an important part of strategic planning is he iterated, right? He didn't stop there. He started on to the next set of things he wanted to accomplish in his life. And one of those things was to find a cure for cancer, right? He had his famous ESPY speech, and you can do extraordinary things. Jamie Valvano had the same mutation, cancer mutation that her father had, but because of the research he invested, he ended up saving his daughter's life at a younger age, and she's in remission for cancer. So I hope this is inspirational and something you all can think about when setting the vision for the city of Hendersonville. We really can do extraordinary things for the citizens and our residents. Financials.
As Adam is coming up, again, lots of hard work going into this next little while of presentation. I will forewarn you, there is a lot of information, a lot of data, but as I looked at, you know, one of your value statements up there is to be transparent and have transparent communication. So we wanted to give you information to show you not only, you know, budget actual and budget numbers, but how we are spending the taxpayers' money. And I know you get asked, you know, what are you doing on money? What's going? So there's a lot of data in here, and we'll spend the next little while going through it. But they've done a really good job of putting together a very transparent presentation associated and showing you how the money is being spent and how it's been spent over several years, so you can show trends. And so hopefully it'll be helpful for you if you get questions going forward. Thank you, Adam.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor, Council. Just as important to the strategic plan, but significantly less inspiring, we're going to go into the details about, as John mentioned, what we spent money on over the last 5 years or so, and take a peek, at least at the general fund, about what's going on from an estimate to actual perspective. Again, to build confidence with you and the community that we're appropriately estimating actuals for each subsequent fiscal year when we go into our budgetary planning process.
And Adam, on a logistics side, we do have a printout of this exact presentation. There's been some updates since we provided the draft binder, so you should have a printout of this part of the presentation sitting in front of you.
Yep, just a few updates and clarifications since Friday when we provided the draft. One of the edits was the addition to this slide, so just providing some helpful information, some items up front to cover. So our actual data is over 5 years, so we're looking at FY21 to 22, so that's the first gap, then 23, 24, and 25, because those are the years we have actuals for out of our audit. We're also going to look at estimate to actual for FY25, again, comparing what we projected for last year to the audit. And in addition to the total costs and dollar amounts, we're trying to show the story behind the dollar change. So our goal isn't just to hit you with, well, this was the dollar amount, this was the percent change year over year. We find value in providing you the detail behind some of the high-level items that occurred year over year to make up those changes. For the general fund specifically, what we're going to do is break this up into functional groups. This is the way we adopt our budget ordinance every single year. And those functional groups, are general government 1, which includes the departments for city council, admin, legal, finance, HR, IT, engineering. And we've also added a debt service slide under the category. Community development, police, and fire are all standalone, so they'll have a higher level of transparency. And finally, public works includes their admin department, fleet, buildings, maintenance, grounds, streets, traffic, PAL bill, the newly titled recreation department, which was formerly the pool, and finally sustainability, which was a new addition in FY25. If there's anything that I don't provide enough detail on, let me know. We're happy to go research it and give you more information on it. So, hitting the ground running with the general fund revenues. You can see back in 2021, our total general fund revenues were about $18.3 million, with the lion's share of that being the ad valorem taxes, which is your property tax. The second most significant source for general fund is sales tax, which is reflected in the unrestricted intergovernmental revenue category. So you can see in 2021 that amount was just over $6 million. We do have some other major categories. Restricted intergovernmental, for example, is mostly your PAL bill revenue. Your permits and fees include things like the motor vehicle fee, fire inspection fees, so on and so forth, fees that we provide for services directly to the customer. I won't hit on the rest of those just in the interest of time, but as you can see, from 2021 through 2025, we've added about $10 million worth of revenue over that 5-year window. It's pretty consistently grown. A lot of that growth, as you'll notice in the FY24 column, is due to our revalue. So in this year specifically, our revenues increased by 17.4%, from $21.5 million to $25.3 million. Again, you'll note the large jump in ad valorem tax revenue from $12 million to just shy of $15 million, and then also some sales tax growth along with PAL bill growth. In the bullets below the table, I've provided just an overview of our assessed values from the years, so you can see the correlation between assessed value growth and property tax growth, along with the tax rate, and a note that FY24 was a revamp.
So Adam, I think it's important to point out that, our city's assessed value between FY 21 and 22 to 24, 25 grew over $1 billion. So, right, am I reading that right? That's,
So 2.224 billion in FY22 to 3.284 billion FY25. So yes, John, that's correct. It's just over $1 billion in assessed value growth.
That's strictly assessed values, but not, does that include properties that we do not collect ad valorem on?
It does not include those, so that would be the value of real and personable taxable properties.
Okay. Do we have a number of like total assessed values of property in the city?
That's in our cost of service model. We're going to be presenting that, I think, tomorrow evening. I don't have that number handy,
Okay.
but we'll
Fine.
get to you. Yep. And transitioning into our expenditures, so revenues, top level, expenditures, a little more detail on each slide. So starting with the general government category, which again, admin, HR, finance, legal, all of those departments lumped into this category. You can see in 2021, we had about $1 million budget, or sorry, $1 million in actual spending for our personnel category. And this most recent completed year, that number again had doubled over the course of 5 years to just over $2 million. The personnel category includes all of our salaries, all of our benefits, so medical insurance, paid family leave, short-term leave, local government employees retirement system, dependent coverage benefits, 401k matches, overtime pay. All of those items are included in the personnel category. So anything that you can think of that might be impacting an employee's pay is reflected in the cost under the personnel category. The big changes between FY21 and FY22 were a 10% cost of living adjustment that was done in advance of our pay and classification study, in expectation that we would need to do a significant increase to maintain an advantageous position among our peers that we studied against. At that time, our merit-based pay system had a 0.75% differential, so I'm going to get the verbiage wrong because it's changed, but at the time, if you were an employee who achieved, who did the bare minimum without receiving a negative feedback on your annual review, you get a 1% bonus. If you did a little bit better than that and were kind of a middle ground employee, you would get a 1.75% merit-based pay bonus. And then if you were exceptional, you were among the top 5 to 10% of employees, you got a 2.5% bonus in FY22. That year, our medical insurance premiums decreased by about 3%. At the time, the cost for the medical insurance benefit was $3.4 million citywide. We added in FY22 the paid family leave and short-term leave benefits, so that was the first year those expanded benefits appeared in our budget. The local government employee retirement system benefit had been increasing for several years, related to the treasurer trying to stabilize our pension system. So for general class employees, everybody that's not a sworn police officer, the city contributed 11.35% of your total pay on your behalf to the system. We increased the dependent coverage benefit for medical insurance, so that was previously 50%, and in FY22 we moved to 75%. We added 2 HR positions, a finance position, 2 engineering positions, which also impact the difference in pay between FY21 and 22, making up that $249,000 cost difference. Finally, that was a year that we did provide a one-time performance bonus around mid-year, and the cost for this group was about $11,000. In FY '23, I'm not going to hit on all of these just to and save some time, but the big change in FY '23 that's different than '22 is the medical insurance premium decreasing, which led to a $2.9 million spend citywide, and we added 3 FTEs. So we added an IT position, a communications position, and 1 budget position, any floor. FY '24, we again had some changes. That was the first year we added a 401k match benefit, and we added 3 additional finance positions. And in our most recently completed year, FY '25, we provided a performance bonus of $15,000, added 1 more finance position, maintained a 401k match at 2%, and had a local government employee retirement system match of 13.6%. So you can see that that percentage had grown over the course of those 4 bullet points there. Moving on to operating expenses, this started at $1.4 million rounding up in FY '21 actuals. As of the most recently completed year, our operating expenses were $2.6 million. The most significant expense in the operating category in general government is special appropriations. So you can see that number hovering between $300,000 and just shy of $400,000 between each of the fiscal years. Our VC3 annual contract is included in that budget, so at the time that was about $700,000 in FY '22. We've carried that contract throughout the years. Also, whenever we add positions, there are some increased costs for additional FTEs, buying uniforms, getting them the right tools for the job. That may be reflected in. Paygo capital is a little touch and go for admin. There's not a lot of capital that we buy in the paraprofessional type departments. So the things that you'll notice here are property acquisitions. So in FY '22, we purchased a property on Pace Street for $95,000. Seems like my slide might be off here. Apologies for that. In FY '23, we purchased a property on William Street for $124,000. Also included in the capital costs at that time were Oracle software and an update to our copier leases. So Ricoh copier lease for $68,000 also included in that budget. In FY '24, we didn't have any general government vehicle purchases, so that's pretty often the case. We don't often buy admin type vehicles, but the one expense that year was a property purchase for actually the building that we're currently in, street. In FY '25, there was no capital purchase. Debt service, this is the one area within the general fund I'm going to hit on debt service. So it's an overall view of what debt we're paying for projects that we recently started or started a while ago that we may be still paying off. The first change you'll notice is a $126,000 increase going from FY '21 to FY '22. We completed the final payments on a 2015 installment financing contract. And at the same time, we refunded a 2018 installment financing contract with a 2021 limited obligation bond. And that was to reduce the interest payments that we had on that previous debt. So remember at that time, around 2021, 2022, interest rates were very advantageous and we did some refinancing. In '23, that is when we began payments on our USDA loan for the police headquarters. So that added about $500,000 worth of debt service. The project itself was an $11.5 million borrowing. For that project, we had a 30-year term with the USDA, and again, very low 2.125% rate, which I really wish I had got on my house that I recently purchased, but that's not the case. We also did a limited obligation bond for a public works maintenance building. Those interest and principal payments began in FY22, and also of note in FY22, that's the first year we began issuing frequently vehicle and equipment loans to purchase our vehicles and update our fleet. In FY24, we began payments on a 2022 installment financing contract. As many of you remember, this issuance was for Fire Station 1, Ladder 1 replacement, Engine 1 replacement, and the construction of Edwards Park. Also in FY24 was a vehicle equipment loan. And in FY25, we ended a 2019 installment financing payment on an equipment loan. So that's typically financed over 4 years. We began payments on the City Hall and Operations Center installment financing contract, which added about $101,000, issued an FY24 vehicle and equipment loan, and had our final payments on the FY22 equipment loan.
Adam, before you move forward, I just want to point out, because, this retreat is about building Hendersonville going forward. I remember about January, February of 2020, when Councilmember Simpson and Mayor Pro Tem Hensley sat down at the dais for our first retreat, and we were talking about all these projects, and I thought I was going to have to pick them off the floor because we had developed this capital plan, right? We had developed this capital plan with all these projects that were coming, and we'd started the movement, right? We'd started the movement for the PD. We'd started the movement for the deck. We'd started the movement for the fire station and everything associated. So this is the culmination of that plan we were doing in 16, 17, 18, 19, and all they got moving forward. And, you wonder how it's going to play out. Well, it's played out, I think, as well or better than we anticipated. Now that you look at interest rates, and now as it relates to where we are, I mean, you look at that number, yes, it's grown, but it's what we anticipated through financing and budgeting. And so, not everything's perfect, and it's all in the eye of the beholder. I understand that. But I think from building the city, this is what we do, and this is why we have these retreats. And so I hope you can look back and say, hey, yeah, it scared me to death, but so far so good, and you hadn't run us out of town yet. So, but I just remember that meeting with the bright eyes and like, what in the world have I gotten myself into? So I just want to point that out, is that there was a plan. We knew, or we hoped we would be at this point now, and so I say that for Councilmember Lawrence's and Councilmember Bacter's. The mayor's been through it. She's seen it all the year, but that's how this system works. So that's the sausage. Thank you, Adam.
Yep, absolutely.
I want to add one thing to that as well. Just when we talk about this, we talk about these big projects, right? But we're also talking about the rates that people have to pay to fund these enhanced services. And we're very diligent at making sure we do not keep a tax rate much higher than 50 cents. The 50-cent rate, it feels like a good area for us on the tax rate. We've been working that for years. We've been in the 48 to the 52 range for over a decade. And we've done all these projects with that same rate. And so that's something we really focus on.
And I forgot to mention one thing, Adam, if you go back one more to that debt is, these projects were done. These projects will serve our community for years. And, think about that 2.125 interest rate for a 30-year bond. Yeah, that's a long time, but the chances of us getting that interest rate again who's the youngest person in the rooms, in Adam's lifetime, are probably unlikely. So, but the community who will use it will pay for it, right? So by spreading it out, it's generational, and that's how government should run, is that the people who use it should pay for it over time. If that makes sense. That's doing it that way. So sound financial planning going forward. Thank you.
So skipping over an old slide that was left in the presentation, I'm going to hit on community development. So getting back to the personnel mindset here, so this is literally just your planning department, and for some of the earlier years, we had your downtown folks sprinkled in at some level. But looking at 2021, we had actuals within the general fund of $368,000. Similar to what you saw in the general government category, by 25, this had nearly doubled to $695,000 with some fluctuations year out. So 21 to 22, the big addition here was an event coordinator. Again, performance bonuses hit this fund, or this department, excuse me. In FY23, no FTE changes, but you'll note the continued increase in local government employee retirement system, the across-the-board changes in medical insurance, the impacts of paying classification studies, merit-based pay changes, so on and so forth. In FY24, more of the same, and in FY25, the big difference, the outlier, is we provided a performance bonus in addition to all of the other salary, pay, and benefit increases that we would have across the fund, across the city. The community development department's operating budget is in a higher level of fluctuation. Much of that is due to their planning initiatives. So you can see in FY21, the actuals were only about $53,000, and in FY22, that number doubled to $107,000. That's attributable to a $39,000 demolition that occurred on Pace Street. We also did some zoning ordinance and subdivision ordinance additions to our new Municode system for $11,000. In FY23, the big hit, the increase, was comp plan consulting, which cost the city $75,000 that year. We did a webpage update for $6,000, and we hired a transportation consultant for $5,000. In 24,
Can I stop you just for
Yes.
1 second? Because I did not realize that it cost $11,000 to, that means adding the ordinance to Municode,
Yes.
like codifying something costs
It was a big
$11,000?
ad, though. It was,
Okay.
that is not used, that is a big ad. Lou,
Okay.
Lou, correct me, that's when we added the complete zoning and subdivision. Everything that had been outside the code of ordinances, we then added it into, that is
Like a
not something we,
unified-
to put it into the code book so that it would be available for the public online, and it would be, when we made changes, we could send it to Municode and be added. So that's not a typical cost, but it was a one-time kind of, this is, we got to get our, instead of the ordinances standing free, and so they're available to the public so they can go in and look on Municode.
Okay, thanks. Sorry, Adam.
No, you're good. And that, I think, was also the first year we had Municode up and running and ready to go for public view. In FY24, that was our big comp plan expense. You don't see this in a capital project ordinance or something outside the general fund because it doesn't generate capital assets. So we had to keep this in our operating budget. It jumped our operating expenditures within the community development department up. In addition, that year, we also had about $22,000 worth of demolition properties. And in FY25 last year, we wrapped up and received the final payment, or sent the final payment for the comprehensive plan, rolled off.
Adam, real just point out a couple things for Friday. One of the things we would talk about is minimum housing and code enforcement. So I will point, on this particular case, 3 examples of what it costs to demolish substandard structures, minimum housing. Part of our conversation on Friday will be just the impact of when we do that, and how that costs, if it's absorbed by the city, or and how that may be put on the property owner. So draw just give you some dollar figures reference for our conversation on Friday.
There were no capital expenditures for the Community Development Department, so we skipped that category. If everybody's ready to shift mindset again, we're off to the Police Department, which is a much larger budget. So I think the largest standalone personnel budget in the general fund is the Police Department. In FY21, it was just shy of $4.4 million. And by FY25, it inflated to 6.1. So again, much like the other functional areas, big expansions for the police department. Some of the things that are different for the police department, again, are the local government employees retirement system. The cost for a sworn police officer's contribution to that system is higher on average than a general class non-sworn law enforcement officer. They receive otherwise many of the same benefits, but one important item of note is the sworn officers also receive 5% 401k contribution. So that 401k match that I previously mentioned is for employees that aren't sworn police officers. So some of the major changes in here, the position additions, in addition to the items that I've mentioned. So in FY23, there were 2 positions added. There was a sergeant and animal enforcement officer added to the department. In FY24, we added an additional police officer position. That's also the year. See the note that the 401k match began with sworn police officer. And in FY25, an important piece in here is, in addition to the 5% cost of living adjustment across the board, fire and police, boots on the ground employees, those who might be responding to emergency situations, receive additional 5%. So you'll note that that's a big piece of year-over-year.
Adam, if I could jump in, one item I want to note here on the police department staffing additions, all of these are special unit, special service type additions. None of these have been added to the police department's traditional sworn officer force. So again, the 22, those 2 officers were traffic unit. Then we added a sergeant to the traffic unit in 23, the animal enforcement specific officer. The 1 officer in FY24 was a Boys and Girls Club officer. That position no longer exists, I believe. I believe the funding was pulled for that from the Boys and Girls Club. And then FY25 was a Main Street assigned officer. So none of these were added to their regular patrol force.
Thank you, Brian. I was going to say the same thing. That'll be important as we talk about public safety on Friday.
Diving into the department's operating budget, this one has been relatively consistent throughout the years, with a jump from FY21-22 being the largest item of note. So $717,000 in 21 to $900,000 in 22. And that jump included a hefty lift of laptop replacements for about $26,000. We began a contract with Axon. Our subscription was $289,000. Some of the recurring operating costs that you'll notice across the police department are expenses for uniforms, protective equipment, things like bulletproof vests are also included in that number. Their supplies budget, which includes their firearms, their sidearms, their less than lethal response tools, and also some of their capital equipment, which is reflective of their operating.
And Chief, Axon is your body camera, or is it just your taser? Just taser. So that Axon is just the less lethal tasers that our officers carry. So, and as the chief was explaining to us in his budget meeting today, currently have a monopoly on the taser business. So if we're going to own a taser, Axon is what we're going to.
Why is it a subscription service?
Everybody is switching to subscription.
Because,
Like how?
So there's, from what I understand from this morning, thankful we had this conversation. There is a firmware update that's required every time the taser goes on the charger. That's for tracking use of the device for officer safety, and also maintenance and upkeep of the device to ensure it works appropriately whenever it may need to be.
it's basically a lease. Basically, we're leasing the taser, spread it out over time, but it is, again, under this model, which a lot of these types of equipment have gone to, is we pay a yearly fee to purchase them, but then they provide if we have use a cartridge, they just mail us one. If the taser malfunctions, we mail it back. They mail us one. It just and it's good for 5 years, and then we have to renew the subscription. So it spreads the cost out versus buying equipment that becomes outdated, and everything is such tied to technology now. Again, when they put it in to charge, it is updating the software that's tracking how they use it and things like that. Is that right, Chief? Thank you.
So the 289 is once every 5 years, not 289 every year?
No, it's $289 a year. Oh, that's over 5 years? Okay, sorry.
I was gonna say, oh my God, I'm in the wrong business.
Okay, sorry.
Well, we might just have to learn old rope.
You're gonna teach them how to
That's
lasso?
Yeah, I think a lasso could possibly be just as effective as a taser in some situations. And probably a lot cheaper.
A highly effective BOLO device was mentioned this morning. And it seems less than ideal from the officer's perspective.
Yeah, I'm not sure that's gonna work.
Thank you, Adam.
Yes. Other item that I've noted in here, just because it's a higher operating expenses, liability and property insurance, just changes year over year, depending on what level of coverage you receive. Police department's pay-go capital, again, capital is always going to fluctuate. Going into FY22, we did vehicle purchases. This was the last year vehicle purchases were not in a capital project ordinance for the police department. So 475,000 of that 92 total that you notice was for vehicle purchases. And that year we also had a server replacement. We had some Motorola emergency management software hit in FY23. That was just shy of $400,000. The cameras, I also noticed an invoice for about $115,000, including that capital account. And the department also bought a computer voice stress analyzer. That is an investigative tool. I think it is used for interviews and helps them conversations with people who suspects. In FY24, vehicle purchases, again, moved to a capital project ordinance, so no hit there. The department did purchase a speed trailer, help with hopefully slowing down some of the speeds on our residential streets. Purchased a digital fingerprint device. Prior to that, we were doing fingerprinting by ink. And we also acquired some mobile forensics devices, again, to help with investigations. In FY25, the only capital item was some gym. So our stay in good shape. Moving on to the fire department, again, more of the same here. A large personnel budget for the fire department, second largest within the general fund. In 2021, the actuals were $2 million, and they have more than doubled leading into FY25 actuals at $5,000,000. The reason in earlier years these personnel expenditures were so low is because we had received 2 different SAFER grants. So SAFER grant gives us 100% grant funding for however many personnel were allotted for the first year. The middle 2 years, we received 65% grant funding for those positions. And third year, we receive 35% before it rolls off entirely and the city becomes responsible for personnel costs. So FY21, we had finished the 3 firefighter SAFER grants, what I call SAFER Grant 1. We had also gotten to the last point of SAFER Grant 2 at 35%. You'll notice that that's based on a calendar award date, not in alignment with our fiscal year. So continued receiving about 35% SAFER Grant in FY23 well. In FY23 also, we added a Deputy Chief of Administration position, which has worked out well for us because that person is now our chief. And our 12 firefighters again rolled off that SAFER Grant going into FY24. FY25, the additional 5% cost of living adjustment for public safety impacted budget for the fire department.
I have a comment.
Yes.
I think that accepting the SAFER grant was extremely good forethought for the previous council members who supported it, because that would have been a really big hit to us at one time. And so kind of being able to ease into that salary expenditure, but also keep our fire department well equipped and staffed. And so I think it was a wise decision, and I'm glad that we did it.
And supporting that thought, it was a key contributor to our ISO 1s.
Exactly.
Looking at the department's operating budget, transitioning away from personnel. Again, more of the liability property insurance included in here. You'll notice that that amount was a little bit lower during the construction phase of Fire Station 1. Popped back up in FY24 and FY25. Another big hit in this department is repairs and maintenance on buildings, equipment. Obviously, fire trucks are not inexpensive to repair, so a good chunk of change in each of the years noted here for any maintenance and upkeep. In FY23, the dip was because the R&M buildings piece was pulled out while Station 1 was under construction. Obviously, apparatus use a lot of fuel, so you'll notice the fuel budgets are relatively high. Uniforms include turnout gear, so those are also high. And supplies, non-capital equipment, their axes, door openers, jaws of life, other equipment are also included in this operation.
Hey, Adam, in FY 24 to 25, is that insurance number right, or is
Insurance number. The liability property insurance?
Yeah.
That's correct. So that was
this
a
why
transition.
that was so much lower?
It was a transition to VFIS.
Okay.
Changed insurance companies to company now specializes in fire insurance. And so we would find us some savings there.
Yeah.
Chief Ward, just for council's information again, the average cost of a set of turnout gear now is $4,200 per firefighter for a set of turnout gear. We like to have at least two sets so that if they're, during a shift that they operate on a fire, they're able to put a clean set in the truck so that because of cancer agents. So sharing that cost with the council and public.
Fire department's pay-go capital, much like the police department, doesn't include any vehicle purchases outside of FY23. They were done in CPOs from that point forward. So the expenses that were included were RAD monitors in FY22. So I rounded that 12K figure up. That's the total of the 11,817 you see in the table. In FY23, we purchased some airbag lift replacements. That's to move big vehicles and obstacles that might need to be displaced to help rescue somebody. Air pack replacements, Justin, I think those are for the firefighters to breathe if they go into a smoke-filled environment. Rescue boat, This one was funny because 23, we thought we'd never need a rescue boat as a fire department on a mountain, but we bought the boat regardless for $9,000 that year, and in FY25 we bought a motor for that boat for $11,000. Skipping back really quick to FY24, we bought a fire extinguisher trainer. That was to help with our life safety division, help them educate the public on best practices to avoid fire danger and respond to a fire if they have the ability to do so. And in FY25, the other capital expense that you'll notice is a hose management system, which is around $10,000. Moving on to Public Works, again, this is a group of various divisions, so did I think a decent job summarizing all of the various factors that go into this functional group, but I'm going to skip over the high-level stuff that I've already hit you with related to the cost of living adjustment, insurance, retirement system, so on and so forth, and just note that in FY22 we added one position in Public Works for grounds, and that year, again, performance bonuses hit. In FY23, we added a sustainability person along with a 3-person streets crew. FY24, we added 4 positions for grounds, 1 in traffic for safety, and a 2-person dedicated downtown crew was also included in the budget. In FY25, there was no change to FTEs, but we did provide a space bonus and all of the other associated benefits and personnel items that are noted in the bullets.
Adam, is that a misprint?
Sorry, what was that?
Is that a typo, Power Bill, or is that supposed to
Uh,
be Power Bill?
Powell bill
Yeah, what's the Power
is
Bill?
looking for
Oh, on the next page. that
on the
you
next
like to go
page.
to.
Gotcha. So Powell bill, Powell is correct. That's a revenue that we receive from the state, and that Powell bill funding that we receive goes primarily into road resurfacing. So we partner that with a motor vehicle fee each year. So the revenue from Powell bill is increased by about 200,000 or so, give or take, for that motor revenue.
And may, Councilmember Lawrence, it is named after Senator Powell, who introduced the bill in the 1930s to share money with cities for street maintenance. When the counties got out of street maintenance in the 1930s, the cities stayed in the street business, and Senator Powell introduced a bill to do that, and as part of that, introduced the process by which they share the gas tax with the cities to maintain streets. So just remember, Senator Powell is the one that gave us the money to maintain our streets. It's not enough, but he gave us the money.
Better than
Thank
us,
you,
especially
Senator.
since the 30s.
Yep, it's never enough, but we have noted the revenues that came in each year. And you can see there was a big jump in the Powell bill revenues. Going into FY22, I won't get super complicated on the formula here, but a lot of our allocation depends on the appropriation at the state level. It also depends on our road mileage, and it also depends on the city's population. If you want more info on that, I'm happy to bore you with it later, but that's how Powell bill is provided to the city. That is one of the biggest operating expenses, which is why it's included in every bullet. And in FY25, the big almost $1 million decrease in the operating budget is mostly because Powell bill was transferred to the 7th Avenue Streetscape project to help with that capital expense. Other important items to note in here include uniforms, supplies, fuel, a lot of trucks, a lot of people moving around, doing work, also our liability property insurance. In FY24, had a few studies done, including the Parks and Green Space Master Plan, which cost us $100,000 that year. Did some HVAC automation for $19,000. And I think that is all of Paygo Capital, again, Public Works, very capital heavy, transitioned in and out of the vehicle and equipment loan, CPO, in several of the years, but in FY '22, you'll notice that we purchased $150,000 worth of vehicles, give or take. We also got some equipment at Fleet to work on the vehicles, including a forklift. Purchased a trailer, did some diving repairs at Patton Pool in FY '22, and also got a conflict monitor to help install and help the traffic division of our city operated lights. In FY '23, bought a key security system at Fleet to help with vehicle check-in, check-out. Put a new roof on the Fleet building. Did some depot HVAC repairs and replacements for about $23,000 on 7th Avenue. Began a mower lease for the grounds crews that cost the city $109,000 that year. We also purchased a cat loader, about $100,000. In '24, all of the vehicles were acquired through the CPO, so they're not reflected in the capital expense this table. But we did buy some fabrication equipment to help the Fleet team create new and innovative ways to manipulate the leaf machine that we use every year. Bought a pool at Patton Pump, got a trench and shoring box for safety, anybody that might be in a hole. Got snow plows and salt spreaders, which really paid off a few weeks ago. Also some message signs to help with events, road closures, so on and so forth. No major capital items of note in FY '25. Most of our capital in FY '25 was cut because of Helene. And the final actuals view for the general fund is fund balance. So this slide specifically is more numbers based, but the key takeaways here are that in FY '22 we began our 25% unassigned fund balance target. That was when the LGC changed their policy from kind of a moving goal to population group based goal. So because our general fund expenditures in that year and forward were over $10 million, the clarified recommendation from the LGC was to maintain an unassigned fund balance that covered at least 25% of our expenditures for the year. We had a property purchase in FY '22 that lowered fund balance by about $2 million. And when we received that loan in FY '23, you can see that number jump back up. So when you look in that middle row, you see unassigned per city policy, $3.4 million. That number, if we had received the loan, would have been about $2 million higher. However, because the lapse in the fiscal year, the loan was done in FY '20. FY '24, there was a adjustment from the FY '25 audit, prior period adjustment, which reduced our reported fund balance by $138,000. That was for some fire department permits receivable. And we also used a little bit of fund balance to close out Fire Station 1, Edwards Park, City Hall and Ops, and the 7th Avenue streetscape projects.
Important to see there that, as we've seen in our expenditures have grown through the years, but also so is our savings account, so is our rainy day. So that money is continuing to be financially sustainable according to your policy.
And one important item to note, if you notice, the total fund balance has consistently gone up. That's not necessarily reflected in the percent available, which is the metric we track. And that's because for our fund total, for that metric to continue to stay the same, we have to put more money back in every year with our spending increases. For every dollar we spend, we have to put 0.25, we have to put a quarter back into the bank to maintain that same percentage.
So going back, Adam, so what you didn't want to see is, and this is why we have the metrics, right, is is our expenditures have gone up. If that number had not also gone up, then we would be like, financially, we're going in the absolute wrong direction, and is a key indicator. Going, not only does percentage increases, but also in where we are on the percentage, but you do have to grow that number as your budget increases, so.
Yeah, because in reality, what that represents is our ability to pay our staff to respond to things like Helene. And as our expenditures grow, our staff, our workforce grows, the majority of our spending is on our personnel. And to continue to pay them through major disasters like that, you have to have a larger fund balance to do it.
All great points. So this is the last 5-year view slide. Next slides are looking at estimate to actual. So focusing on revenues first, and I'm going to go off of variance analysis to the right. But the differences between the total 6.7% variance between estimate and actual, so actuals were higher on the revenue side. One, that's an artifact of us budgeting conservatively, estimating conservatively. But two, there were several changes going on between FY20. Number one, we moved from a 49-cent tax rate in 24 to a 52-cent rate in FY25. There were several economic development projects, which we'll hit on tomorrow evening, which boost that property tax base in FY25. So some of those were Jabel, Eli Lilly, and 2 properties at Court. In FY25, we also budgeted sales tax conservatively. There was very, very slow growth in sales tax in FY24. It was about 1% growth year over year. So in an abundance of caution, our FY25 estimate was about a 1.67% increase over the FY24 actual. So very conservative budgeting on the sales tax side, which is also difficult to predict because it's a very elastic revenue source.
Adam, if I could add, at the same time, if you could recall, we were going through really high inflation. There was a lot of concerns economically during this budget preparation. And I think we even had a hiring freeze in the same time period and froze capital spending. So we were really pulling back on the reins really hard. Luckily, the sky didn't fall, and sales tax actually did tremendously well for us. So that is one of the major factors in this.
And some of the other stuff is really accounting cleanup. So for example, some of the $249,000 that we miscellaneous, in all actuality, was probably apportionment sales and services category. So some of that can just be attributed to nomenclature between the categorization of accounts. And finally, I thought it was important because I mentioned PAL bill in some of the prior slides and how it was transferred out. The revenue was recorded in the general fund. So we received it in the general fund, it was recorded there, it was transferred out of the general fund. So that's why the estimate to actual doesn't vary significantly that restricted governmental category. On the expenditure side, the biggest difference between the estimate and actuals you'll notice is the $600,000 between the personnel estimate and the personnel actual. Anytime there's a big gap in between the estimate and actual for personnel, it's attributed to actions that happened after adoption of. So the things that happened after adoption of the budget in FY25, we added 3 firefighters. That cost us about $330,000 all in, salaries, benefits, matches, medical insurance. I could go all day. We also added a payment posting specialist, which cost about $65,000. We provided a one-time, a one-time bonus, which cost the general fund $159,000. And we wrapped up some work on career ladders for public works, and some folks may have had an opportunity to receive an additional 5% pay bump because of the implementation of that career ladder. Operating costs, again, PAL bill, biggest difference here. We weren't quite sure when we adopted the budget how we were going to record that, what exactly was going to happen. But on the expenditure side, we reduced that operating expense, and that $650,000 or so for PAL bill was transferred out. So largest difference in operating, PAL bill. We also had some lien impacts, obviously, and PAYGO, the $165,000 variance was from us not buying the capital that we budgeted. Again, lien.
Adam, just a note on here, we do have, it says general government at the top, but that's the full general fund, just to clarify.
Yeah, thank you.
And then, you know, on an aggregate for the total fund, our estimate was off by 1%. So pretty close considering all those variables that were occurring, but pretty good confidence. We've been right in the 1% area for many years on the expenditure side of the house.
And Brian, to your point, the 1.1%, we estimated higher expenditures
Yep.
than we actualized. So
We underspent.
We were conservative in our estimate there. And then going back to the revenues, you know, within what we were able to do, we were very conservative on the side. So that was 6.7% to our benefit in receiving actuals that exceeded our estimate. So to wrap this up, we're committed to providing a transparent view of the budget and finances. We feel that we provide valid and reliable estimates and comparisons with our actuals, and the estimates being strong is essential to our continued financial sustainability and our strategic goal success. If you have any questions, more specific items you want us to talk about, we're happy to research them. And for tomorrow, we're going to provide a similar financial analysis for your 2 MSD funds and all of your enterprise funds listed below. Are there any questions I can help with this evening?
Adam, just for my information, maybe the rest of council, did we have to purchase any body cams for the police department in the recent years? No, at one.
Yes, those are in the Motorola.
In the Motorola.
Motorola
Okay,
is
that's
body cameras.
okay, that's what I would.
So absolutely. That is, yes, that is a staple, and will continue to be a staple.
We purchased 7 one year.
We buy,
The full, all officers.
All officers gonna have body cams.
it's similar to the TASER subscription service. You know, basically are leasing the equipment from Motorola, and it includes the body cam, the in-car cam, and all the storage, everything that goes with it, so that if we need to look at it, we can look at it, and it's in good shape, and we can find it. So,
So it is under the, I was wondering if it was under the,
yeah, about 115,000 a year.
thank you.
That's the end of my presentation.
Thank you. Good job, Adam.
Thank you.
So we do have a closed session that will, as far as the retreat portion of the night, we have a good foundation. Brian kind of shared some information that you can follow up in, and we've got the general fund budget actuals behind us, and so we'll hit the other funds in the morning and some other, or tomorrow evening in financial. Glad to answer any questions as we go along. And if you get home tonight and you've got questions, let us know. We try to give you draft information in your notebook so you'd have that to look back at. So we'll update that. And then tomorrow night we'll start at City Hall at 6 o'clock, and we'll have a meal. I'm sorry, we're here at Operations Center. Thank you, Allison. She's given tomorrow night, we'll have a meal for you tomorrow night for dinner. And we should be done by 8:30. So that's all I have, Mayor, except for the closed session.
Madam Mayor, I move that the City Council enter closed session pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11A1 and 4 to prevent the disclosure of information that is privileged or confidential pursuant to the law of this state or of the United States or not considered a public record within the meaning of Chapter 132 of the General Statutes, and to discuss matters relating to the location or expansion of industries and businesses in the area served by the public body.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Not those in favor of entering closed session for the reason given, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say no. Ayes have it, motion carries, and we are in closed session.